Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Podcasty Tangent thing. I wasn't really sure I was going with that, to be honest.
Well,
with myself, Paul.
You recovered, and I'm Amata.
Yeah. So that was like the worst intro possibly ever.
It's fine. It's the standard.
That was almost as bad as when Nintendo introduced, the NES Classic.
Well, how have you been?
Next question.
No, answer that question first.
Just really busy.
Right, well, you've been doing all the PS4 Pro stuff, haven't you?
Basically, yeah. I'm just holding fire because I'm waiting on the Final Fantasy 15-y thing to come out, because I figure that there's no point having the comparison until that. So I want like 6 games on my initial review. So basically it's like, is it worth it for 1080p owners? So I want 6 games to do an analysis on, and then I figure I can answer the question in a better way. So far, the answer is loading times are faster, although they're faster if you've got an SSD, because it's using SATA 3 rather than, for some reason, both the Xbox One, the original Xbox One, obviously Scorpio is probably going to change this, and the PS4 and the Slim all used, well, SATA 2 connections. What the fuck they did that for, I'm not quite sure. But it basically means you can put in, like, a hard drive that's the speed of light and it doesn't make a difference. The loading times still suck. So they fixed that with the PS4 Pro, and they've upgraded it to a technology that's been around on PCs since the dinosaurs ruled the earth. But still, it's progress.
Final Fantasy comes out, like, tomorrow, I think?
Yes, I've already pre-ordered it. It is slowly wandering its way towards me. I was really pissed, actually. I was expecting it to come through the mail today, and then the postman delivered just as I was walking by the door, and then my level of, like, oh.
Yeah, you got all excited in the postman. It's like, oh, he's dropped off my package. And then you get in and it's like, no, he hasn't.
Like, I was like, that number of letters looks suspiciously unlike a parcel for me.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Right, so we've got a fairly lengthy list of topics as always, but first, what have you been playing?
2 things.
Yes.
Well, actually 3, technically. The first would be Dishonored 2.
Mm-hmm.
The second is... what is the second one? More Gears of War, which I'm actually quite enjoying, if I'm totally honest with you. It's actually a really good game. Definitely glad I bought it. And the third one is COD.
Oh yes, Infinite Warfare.
Yeah, I'm not super far into it, but I don't think I'll play online. I'm actually just borrowing it off a friend, simply for the PS4 Pro versus PS4 thing. So I'm just sticking with the campaign. But I'm really enjoying it, actually. I was like, you know what? Yeah, it's a bit silly at points, and yeah,
well,
Kit
I
Harington.
think Call of Duty could do with a bit of silly, because normally, from my experience, it takes itself far too seriously.
And Kit Harington, I'm pretty convinced, is possibly one of the worst actors in any video game ever.
Really?
Yeah, I'm just like, he's trying way too hard in the role. Like,
I mean, I haven't seen any of the games, so I'm taking your word for it.
He's trying way too. It could be the writing, but I don't think. Maybe it's because I know him more than the other people. But then again, there are some. Most of the actors in it are at least. Well, there's quite a few. Not super A-list celebrities, but there are some.
I'd say Kit Harington's pretty A-list considering he's in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So that's why I'm saying that I don't know if it's necessarily the writing. He just feels like maybe he's just not meant for voice capture or something. He just feels really...
Yeah, I mean, just because you're a good actor does not mean you're a good voice actor. I mean, it can be done. Obviously, it can be done. Mark Hamill is like the example of that. But a lot of it doesn't automatically mean you're going to be good at voice acting if you're good at acting, because I've said this before, with acting you have your entire body to express an emotion or whatever.
Well, technically you do here because it's motion capture as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, but it's mostly coming through the voice. Let's be real. If the voice doesn't sound good, you can have the best motion capture in the world, but if the voice sounds like it's being recorded for a tin can connected by a piece of string, it doesn't really matter.
To be honest, it's not that he's awful in it. Maybe it's as well because he's playing a bad guy.
Yeah, I mean that might be a bit of just weird considering used to seeing him as Jon Snow, who was like the the absolute poster boy for goody goody.
Yeah, I was like, you know nothing, do you? And he's like, no, I don't. I'm like, it's okay.
So, Dishonored 2, what do you make of that then?
I think I would be enjoying a fuck ton more if I was playing it on PC.
Right.
I find Dishonored, because I played the original one on PC, as you're fully aware.
Mm-hmm.
I find the controls on keyboard and mouse so much nicer. I find them on joypad. It's just the little touches. It doesn't feel so smooth when you're switching between things compared to just... For example, I'm used to being able to run and at the same time being able to switch to, let's say, pressing number 3 for, let's say, teleport or whatever you've got, and then like teleporting but still be running and then pressing 1 to, say, switch to your pistol, just for example. And it doesn't work like that on
Well, no, you've got to bring up the weapon wheel, right?
No, you've got the quick binding for one, for the up, down, left, right.
Mm.
But you can't run with, you've only got one thumb on each hand, as far as I'm aware. So basically, the problem is you can't hold forward to run at the same time as...
No, I get what you're saying. It's not just like on Give a Mouse around, like, I've got my fingers on W, S and D, and I literally just reach up slightly to press one of the hotkeys, and that's it.
Precisely, so it's little things like that. And because the controller, it's not that the controller's bad, it's just, it's not anywhere near as fast. So like when I'm trying to teleport and say shoot someone in midair, just because the mouse controls are so much more responsive. But then again, I'm not going to buy the game again just to play it on PC. The only reason I bought it, or got it on PS4, is because it was basically free with the PS4 Pro, with the deal, you know. So, that's why I'm playing it on there. I'm like, fuck it, I'm only playing it for the story.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, I know what you mean. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's not a bad game. I just think I would enjoy it an extra 10% if it was on PC. And I have noticed, well, on the PS4 and the PS4 Pro, there is a fuck ton, and I do mean an absolute fuck ton of texture, shimming, and just weirdness and aliasing. Details popping in and out, like when you're slightly turning. So, for example, cloth is notorious. I won't spoil it for anyone who's not played it, but in the second level, where you go after the first boat ride.
Yeah.
You know how you are typically going in the areas with like the blood flies, and you're quite high up at those points?
Mm-hmm.
If you start moving, I've noticed that there is a lot of texture shimmying in the water, and there's also it on the walls. Shadows are pretty awful as well. I don't know if it's like that.
I have not noticed anything like that on PC.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. There's a lot of hinkering with that, and I'm actually really someone who notices shadows. And,
I haven't been looking at the shadows or anything really. I mean, I've got shadows for the rats and bloodflies turned off just to, save on the performance, given that it isn't the best optimized game in the world. But
it's not those that's the issue. It's the actual environment.
I haven't noticed anything with the environment, so.
Maybe I don't know, maybe I'm just being anal retentive, but it's really annoying.
Well, no, I mean, if it's as noticeable as you're saying, then I would have noticed regardless, but I haven't noticed anything, and I've actually completed my non-lethal run now, so if I was going to notice
How did you find it?
Pretty good. As I said, like, at least when you're playing as Emily, there's way more non-lethal options. I feel like she's actually kind of built for a non-lethal playthrough with the versatility that she has with her powers. I'm not saying you couldn't do a lethal run. You absolutely could do a lethal run with her. I just mean, like, compared to Corvo.
I was like, I'm doing that.
Yeah, no. Just for example, like, I've now started my lethal run with Corvo just to see if there's any real difference in the story, which there probably won't be, but might as well try. And his powers are very, very aggressive. Like, if you're playing non-lethal with him, you'd really only have like the powers like Blink and Dark Vision and a couple of others, like most of his powers are like lethal things, like summon a swarm of rats to eat people and then eat their corpse, and I'm just like, it's a good thing I chose him for the lethal run.
Yeah, I have noticed that her stuff is not exactly super duper lethal.
Yeah, I mean, like my favourite power in the game is her domino power. I don't know if you've got that one yet.
No, I'm still pretty early on in the power tree.
Right. Well, literally, it is like you link enemies together. So let's say I want to put two enemies to sleep or kill them both. You know, you choose one. I literally link them together. I kill one, and the other shares his fate. So it means you just save on ammo, basically.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah, it's a pretty good power, and I kind of miss that power now that I'm playing as Corvo.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Oh wow, I'm on Steam at the same time. And they've got Resident Evil Revelations 2, and each of the episodes are really cheap. They're like £2.
Let me have a look. Hold on, I'm just loading up. Prison Architect is very cheap. Hitman franchise, Wolfenstein: The New Order, Starbound is really cheap. We should probably get that. Oh, Transistor is basically free. £3.24. Nice. Good deals.
Oh, wait, what? Oh, it's the 20th anniversary, apparently.
Of what, sorry?
Resident Evil.
Oh, is it? Mm.
It is.
Fun times.
Yeah. It's making me twitch quite a bit that Resident Evil 2 and 3 isn't available. It is technically on PC as well, may I add?
Resident Evil 2 and 3?
Yeah, they are available on PC. They're also released on the Dreamcast, GameCube.
Were they released on the PC?
Yes.
Mm. I always played that on the PS1. So, I really hope we get a trailer for Resident Evil 2 remake at E3 next year.
Yeah, it'd be kind of nice if it appeared on PlayStation Experience, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, they're doing Resident Evil 7 stuff at the minute, so I don't think we'll see anything until at least E3 next year, maybe not even then. And it won't even release till probably the next year after that.
What do you think of RE7 so far?
Well, I haven't been able to play the demo because obviously it's only on PS4 and you've got the PS4 at the minute, but I've heard nothing but good things, and from the gameplay that I have seen by, you know, YouTubers and streamers and such, it looks really, really cool. I mean, it looks very different. A lot of people have been going, oh, it's not Resident Evil, and I'm just like, well, who cares? Resident Evil 4 wasn't like Resident Evil, and Resident Evil 4 is one of the best games ever made, so shut your face.
A very informed argument from Amy there.
Well, I'm being a bit facetious, obviously, a bit tongue-in-cheek, but you get my
facetious?
You get my point. It's just like, okay, yeah, it looks very different for Resident Evil, but Resident Evil 6 was absolute garbage, and Resident Evil 5 was not great. So, you know, maybe it's a good thing that it's not like Resident Evil in appearance. And you know, just because it's from a first-person perspective doesn't mean it's not going to be Resident Evil. I mean, from what I've seen of it, it looks like Resident Evil. I mean, it's in a house for the first time in God knows how many years, so it's more Resident than anything else that we've seen.
This is true.
So, you know, there are guns in the game. It's not going to be an Amnesia-style game. Like, Capcom said that like 50 times, and only until they showed people a gun in a trailer did people stop going, oh, I don't want it to be Amnesia. And it's like, well, it's not. It's Resident Evil. It's just from a first-person perspective, and it's going to be an actual horror game rather than a Gears of War clone with a horror skin.
May I add that I was, as you know, played the Outlast demo.
Yeah, I played it as well.
Well, yeah. I thought it was actually really good.
Well, it's tough to say if that's going to apply to the main game, because obviously it's much easier to keep pacing going in a demo than it is in a 10-hour experience or whatever it ends up being. But
yeah,
I was
vertical slices.
Yeah, but I was impressed, and it seems better than the original just from that demo.
Yeah, I wasn't a massive fan of the original. It's not it was a bad game for anyone jumps on me. I just think that it wasn't as good as it could have been.
Well, no, it was a good game, but it was a bit too eager to get started. You know, in my personal preference, you shouldn't really get a monster properly until like a couple of hours in, like Silent Hill style.
So basically, you're telling me that video games should be basically like they should take it like the 4-play approach.
Yeah, well, especially in a horror game, you need pacing and you need build up. And
so basically, like 4-play. Okay.
Yeah, cool. Outlast, within 30 minutes, you are getting chased by that weird
boogity boogity.
Yeah. So there was that, and also it was a bit too heavy on jump scares as well for my tastes. I mean,
yeah, I'd agree with that.
Jump scares are fine; they're a tool that you can use. You know, even Silent Hill 2 has one, but you know, relying on them too heavily is where the issue starts.
Where was it on Resident Evil 2? Sorry, Silent Hill 2.
Oh, I can't remember now. You have to go looking for it. That's the thing. It's not like something that happens. I think it's just trying to remember. I think it's like a monster bursts out of a closet or something. I can't remember. It's something you have to go and look for. It's not something that happens like Pyramid Head doesn't go oogity boogity or whatever.
Okay.
Anyway, we've kind of been tangenting for ages now. We haven't even talked on a topic, so we should probably...
Well, our tangent power. Fear it.
Yeah, pretty much. So, let me start with PlayStation VR since we're talking about the PS4. Basically, according to GfK chart data, who mostly deal with UK, or they do deal with UK retail stuff,
yes,
the PlayStation VR, only having been out just over a month, is on track to beat the sales of the HTC Vive and the Oculus Rift combined.
Damn.
Yeah. Now, this points to one of two things: the great success of the VR or the really poor sales of the other two. It could be both.
I personally think it's I think, to be honest, the initial VR thing. The fact is, like...
There's no real reason to play VR at the minute because there's not really what I would call a system seller. Resident Evil 7 will probably change that, to be honest.
See, that's the issue. It's like, it sounds great, like it sounds really boastful, but the issue is, it's like in reality, it's not really that impressive to say.
Well, we don't know the actual hard sales, so it's hard to say whether or not it's impressive. However, I kind of expected this for one reason. A, it's the cheapest out of the lot. B, it's the least hassly out of the lot, and C, they automatically have a potential user base of like 40 million. That's, you know, however many PS4s they've sold. I think it's about 40 million at last count. So while not every one of those people is going to buy a PS4 VR, but you get what I'm saying, those are all potentially already 40 million potential customers, whereas, yes, I have a PC, but I could not run VR on my PC. You have to have a pretty beastly machine to be able to run VR on PC. So there is that.
Yeah.
So there's multiple reasons why the PlayStation VR was kind of already going to be the king, at least for this now, because it's just easier. From what I've heard, obviously I haven't used it myself, but from all the reviews and videos I've seen, it's the least hassly to set up. You know, you just put it on, you adjust it, boom. Whereas with the Vive, you know, you're putting these weird sensors all over your walls and all this other stuff. So I'm not really surprised, to be honest.
No, I'm not really either.
It's still expensive when you throw in like the camera and stuff, but it is still the cheapest VR headset, unless you're going to go for like a mobile one, like the Gear VR or whatever.
Yeah, and even so, even if you factor that in, it's still not that damn impressive.
So, you know, I'm going to wait to hear actual sales figures before I, you know, get out the party streamers or whatever, but it's still impressive, at least, you know, on the offset.
Fair enough.
So, you had some stuff about Threadripper I thought you might want to discuss.
Yeah, so basically, there were a couple of patents which popped up from AMD over the past few days. And it's quite past month or so. And it's quite interesting because basically, there's not a massive amount of information on what they do. All they've said basically is that Ryzen and Threadripper, along with a whole bunch of other ones, which are including Joro Jitsu, and Grok, and each one says AMD in front of it, but I'm not going to read out AMD every time.
No.
So all they say basically is that they are very generic, but something along the lines of semiconductor devices, semiconductor chips, semiconductors, computer hardware, microprocessor modules, chipsets, integrated circuits, graphics processors, and accelerated processors. Whereas Threadripper is even more vague. It says something along the lines of semiconductor devices, chips, blah blah blah, microprocessor modules, subsystems, computer graphics subsystems. It just keeps going. But if you look at the name of Threadripper, the most logical thing that I can think of is it's for AMD's SMT, like simultaneous multiprocessing, which is part of Zen. Obviously, the fact it can handle 2 threads per core. So I think it's basically their marketing slang for that.
Okay.
As for Ryzen, it could be the desktop version of Zen, but it also could be something completely different.
Okay.
I'm personally not a massive fan of the name Ryzen. I don't think Threadripper sounds too shabby. Some people hate it, but I think it sounds alright.
Well, it sounds interesting, but what does it actually mean is my question. I mean, the name is all well and good, but who cares unless you know what it does, really?
Basically, it's just simply saying that, well, it is pretty much what you can imagine. It's basically that it's for multiple threads. But the other way of getting it, and this would be very interesting, is if it could take a thread and split it across multiple cores, so it would be more efficient multi-threading, but I don't see how that could happen. That would have to be software related or something along those lines, but who the fuck knows at this point, to be honest.
Alright, and you also had some rumour busting Zen stuff.
Yes, sir. This one's a bit of a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a thing. It's big and it's a thing. So, you know as well as I do, there are so many Zen rumours at the moment. You could probably write a thesis on it.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, some of them are official, which AMD have released. Others are benchmarked. Others are benchmarks which have leaked, but are going hand in hand with what AMD's results are. So you could probably give them some level of okay. And others are like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
And basically, several websites, I won't name names, and several forums popped up with a image which basically was a leak on Zen. The problem with it was all Excel based.
Okay.
So basically it was an Excel image, yeah. So all the person did was they got Excel, they opened up Excel, and they used the various columns and rows to type out the various Intel CPUs and AMD CPUs, and they basically said, okay, here's the pricing, here's the number of cores, here's the score on X benchmark comparison. Now, it was being reported that it was a leak. Unfortunately, it wasn't, because we actually got a message from contact at RedGamingTech, like 2 days before this whole leak popped up, and basically the person who created it happened to email it to us as well and be like, yeah, I created this, what do you think of these, what do you think of my chart? And apparently as well, they also messaged, it also did the rounds on a couple of forums which were Chinese, and he must have been a member of them, posted the same thing, people saved it, didn't bother to use Google Translate, jumped on it, and bang.
Right, so basically, just for the TLDR, all this chart is a collection of previously heard leaks and rumours.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything new.
No, but what he did do is he used some logic, and I'll give it to the guy, like, he did research. It's nothing against the individual, who will remain nameless. I did mention his first name in the original video, but you know, it's nothing against him. He did a really good job, because he basically condensed it all down and said, here's a chart. It's not his fault that people... Well, first of all,
I wasn't blaming them. I'm just saying, like, you know, it's people got hold of it and didn't bother to check and all this. It just kind of got out of hand, basically.
Yeah, Pretty much. That's all it was.
Completely off topic, but I was just kind of browsing around, and we've got the top 10, well, top 40, but I don't want to go for all 40 for the
Please don't.
this week in the UK, and Pokemon Sun and Moon are beating like Battlefield 1 and Watch Dogs 2, which just makes me smile.
I'm actually not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah, you got like FIFA at the top, Call of Duty at number 2, and then
that pisses me off.
yeah, and then Pokemon Sun and Moon is at 3 and 4, but obviously they're basically the same game. So
I'm actually not. I don't know how I feel about that.
I mean, I'm happy because it's the best Pokemon game in years. But it just
Yeah,
makes
but
me
at the
laugh
same
that you got this
time-
Pokemon game who's like beating Battlefield 1 and Watch Dogs 2 and Grand Theft Auto 5.
But at the same time, though, there's a part of me that wants Nintendo to get owned.
I mean, no.
Do you know why? To be honest, I was watching a video of Jim Sterling today, and he was telling, in his latest Jimquisition, he was saying about how Nintendo are basically just need to stop being dicks. And he was saying about the NES Classic. And to be honest, he was voicing, I think, what a lot of people have been thinking. It's like, Nintendo really are assholes.
They are.
What they do.
They are, but
What
it's
they
kind
do-
of their identity at this point.
Yeah, what they do is basically they essentially deliberately manufacture or release products at lower quantities than what actually they can. And the reason, and it's like, for example, the NES Classic, the hardware in that thing is basic. I mean, you could bloody make a Raspberry Pi, get a Raspberry Pi, throw out, get like a basic version of the Raspberry Pi, and then just get plastic mold, and it's essentially the same thing. I'm not saying that manufacturing millions of them, but he was saying that retailers have been allocated 2.
2?
And you can't... 2!
Are you fucking
2.
kidding?
No, I mean
See,
literally number
this is
2.
what they do with Amiibos. They do this all the fucking time where they'll deliberately manufacture less than they know people will actually want, so that they will all get sold instantly, and then that's it.
Well, basically the reason behind it is because then it makes it seem like the product is extremely popular, therefore people keep pre-ordering them, and then they know that they're just going to sell fuck tons when they
But what it does is screw over people that are their customers, because, someone who really
They
wanted
don't care.
Yeah, but someone who really wanted an NES Classic is just going to go on eBay and get ripped off. It's like...
They don't care, they still get the initial sale.
I
And
know they
that's
don't
the problem.
care, I'm just saying, like, everyone gives Nintendo a pass, and it really pisses me off.
This is the problem, like, they've been doing this since the original Wii. I mean, well, they've been doing it before the Wii, but they were doing it on the Wii. They were doing it on the bloody early Pokemon games back in the day. They did it on one of the Game Boys, I can't remember which one. And now they're doing it on Amiibos. I mean, fucking Amiibos. It's a piece of fucking plastic. And do you know what pisses me off more than the fact it's a piece of plastic? The fact that you actually need them to unlock certain content in the game.
Well, that's only with certain Amiibo, but it still is shitty. I mean, that was with the Twilight
that's my
Princess
point.
one, I think.
Yeah, but that's my point. Some of those are limited. It's like, first of all, you're a complete bastard for making that so you need an amiibo to unlock it. And second of all, you're even more of a bastard to actually have it as like, it's limited quantities of that specific amiibo. It's like, you know what, if you wanted to, just for example, celebrate the 20th anniversary of a game, and then you said, there's like 5,000 of these created, and we're going to sell 5,000 on the store, and there's another 5,000 that we're going to give away to competition winners. I'd be like, you know what? I 100% say that's cool. That's cool. It's limited edition. You're celebrating. I've no problem with that whatsoever. But when you're doing it for basic fucking products, which, there's not much more engineering in that than what there is a toothbrush, it just pisses me off.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why I love Nintendo's products. Like, some of the games they've made. For example, I was just thinking the other day, I was laying in bed and I was thinking to myself, what are some of the best games I played in like the PS2, Xbox, so on. And one of the games that immediately struck me was Metroid Prime. I swear that game is amazing. But Nintendo as a company, they do some really bastard stuff, and it actually annoys me that people jump on like Ubisoft or EA, but they give like certain companies a pass, and it really pisses me off.
Yeah, like if EA or Ubisoft did the whole thing with YouTube that Nintendo does, they would get absolutely crucified. But people just seem to be like, they don't like the fact that Nintendo does it, but they would give Ubisoft or whatever a way harder time about it, I feel.
Yeah, and to be honest, even Sony, like, look at the time Sony have fucked up, or Microsoft have fucked up, and people are happy to, like, you know, camp on them and set them on fire. But if Nintendo do it, it's fine. They're just quirky. No, you've got to pull them up on it, and that's why, as much as like Hello Games, as much as I jumped on Sean Murray, to be fair to them, now they're releasing the Founders Patch or whatever it's called. Although I don't forgive them for what they did with No Man's Sky, I'll give them credit for fixing it. But I do believe that you should always call companies out on bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's like Nvidia. Like, Nvidia recently have had some really massive fuck ups. Like did you see they released drivers which massively downclocked the memory on the GTX 1070?
They've been having a bad time with their drivers recently. Like every other month, it's like, yeah, don't download the drivers this month because it'll blue screen your PC or whatever.
I know, and I'm just like, and the thing is, AMD are the ones who have the legacy of crappy drivers in the mind of the public. And to be honest, I will say, back in the day of like the mid 2000s up to like 2010, some of AMD's drivers, well, back then ATI as well, were fucking shocking. They did get a lot better. So it's like, that's the problem. I think people, it's very hard to get out of that, of the mindset of the people, basically.
Yeah. Well, let's move on from that into the Switch. Now, obviously, as always,
speaking of products which are extremely overpriced.
Well, we don't know how much it's going to cost yet. But while we're talking about Nintendo, there's a new sort of rumour. It's not really the right word, but it's the closest thing. So rumour's going to have to be the thing. Basically, there was some comments from the GameStop CEO, Paul something. I forget his full name, to be honest. And he called the Switch a quote-unquote game changer, but that's not why I bring it up. He said some stuff which heavily implied the use of motion controls on the Switch. Now, I did a video on this, and I have to say, I said this in the video, that I find the idea of motion controls on the Switch a bit strange and a bit pointless, to be honest. It's like, okay...
By a bit strange and a bit pointless, do you mean a bit shit and a bit disappointing?
Well, no, but hear me out a second. Like, it doesn't even make any sense, because, okay, you've got this thing which is a home console hybrid with handhelds, right? So when it's docked, you're probably not going to be using motion controls. You're just going to be using that normal controller thing, and that's it, right?
Yes.
And when you're out on your plane journey or whatever, you're not going to be using motion controls because you look like an insane person. No one's going to use motion controls on a handheld because they'll get carted off to the loony bin.
I have heard, well, remember, one of the earlier rumours for this thing was something like, if you remember those 3D, basically those hollow controllers, so basically they fit over the camera area, and so basically you can use any shaped joystick or whatever. Do you remember that?
I can't recall off the top of my head, but I'll take your word for it.
Basically, okay, here's what I want you to imagine. The Switch, right, has I guess the best way of putting it is an orifice.
Okay.
Or orifices, so multiple, right? And what you do, you add a little bit of lube first, right? And then you take your device. Now, this basically has no components inside of it, so it's just a bit of plastic. So let's just say a dildo-shaped device, right? Right?
Okay.
Right. And it basically goes on top of the... I guess the best way of putting it is the orifice. It's the camera. And then that can be used as either, let's say, a motion... It could be a ball, it could be a button, it could be an analog stick, and basically it could do multiple things. And technically it's motion-based. That was one of the early...
Right, okay.
Now, personally, what I think the device is primarily going to be used for is a large dildo, and Nintendo are going to ask their customers to basically rectally insert it.
Yeah, I don't see that happening for some reason, but I don't know, with the Switch, like, a touchscreen, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense for when you're using it in the handheld way. That's cool. But a motion control, like, I guess you could have it when it's docked, but even then it's just like, okay, so you could have this feature that a developer is going to feel inclined to include because that's just how they are, that you can't use half of the time. No one's going to use motion controls when they're on the bus. No one's going to do that. Seriously.
What the developers should say is, when Nintendo say, I think we should add the motion control, they should just say, I'm disinclined to acquiesce to your request.
Alright, well, let's move on from Nintendo and let's talk
Please.
about some comments that you covered from the Alienware co-founder that said that PC has quote-unquote won against consoles.
Yeah, so you might have also remember EA said that they used the PC now as the lead platform for development, especially when they're using Frostbite.
Yes, I do recall.
So basically, what Alienware said is that it's not that they're winning with PCs in terms of sales figures, but he's saying that they've won in terms of PC because consoles now inherently are PCs, they're just cut down PCs. So his argument is that PCs are becoming simpler to use, whereas consoles are becoming harder to use. Like, look at when I borrowed that Call of Duty and I stuck it in, and we were like immediately greeted with a fuck off update. And before that, the consoles had to update as well. I was like, are you serious? I only updated the consoles like a day before. And then another firmware update come out. I'm pretty sure if I switched it on now, they're going to ask me to update again. Back in the day, like even the early 360s, it wasn't like that. It's like, the problem I've got with consoles is that I like consoles, and some of the games on like this generation of consoles are amazing. Like Infamous, Last Light, I'm really enjoying it as a piece of DLC, and I'm really enjoying some of the other titles we've seen, like Bloodborne was really good, Gears of War, although it is on PC as well, but you know, as a game, it's still really good on the Xbox. You've had some really amazing experiences on it. The problem with consoles, though, is that to me, every time I'm playing them, back in the days of like the PS2, I always thought to myself, like on the PS2, on the PS1, I was still a PC gamer primarily, but there were times where I thought to myself, you know what? I'm actually glad I've got a console. Because yes, the graphics are a bit worse. Yes, the loading times are a bit slower. Yes, I can't save wherever I want. But you know what? I can't be fucked today to sit at my desk. I can't be bothered to deal with the, patching, with the loading and all that bollocks. I can just stick the game in. I don't have to wait for it to go to the hard drive, blah, blah, blah. His argument, the crux of it is PCs are now much more powerful than a console. They're not that much more expensive. I'm putting some words into his mouth, but you can basically kind of dig between the lines. And consoles are becoming so clumsy compared to what a PC is. Compared to what they used to be like 1 or 2 generations ago. Like, I no longer feel when I'm playing on the console that it's that much easier. Like back in the day of the PC, it used to be an absolute nightmare with configuration. Now I've got bloody multiple accounts I need to sign in quite often on some games on PC. You've got bloody, all the store, you've got to pay online, you've got to do that. It's just...
Well, it's like I was saying to you the other day, like back in the day of like the PS1, PS2, early PS3/Xbox 360, the main advantage of a console was you plug and play. You go to the shop, you get your game, you put the disc in, you get past the loading screen, and you're in the game.
Precisely.
Probably from disc going in the disc tray to game start is probably like 5 minutes maximum, I would say, depending on the loading times and all that good stuff. But let's just say 3 to 5 minutes. Would you say that's fair?
At worst.
Yeah, that's me like kind of embellishing slightly. More often than not, it's probably more like 2 minutes. But regardless, nowadays when you put a game in a console, the software on the dashboard needs to update. Okay, you wait for that to download. 5 minutes pass. Okay. Oh, and now the game needs to download a 7 GB day one patch. Okay, if you have a shitty connection, good luck downloading that for the entire day.
Do you know what annoys me more than that though? What pisses me off more is because the MTU, you should Google this yourselves, but basically from what I heard from a networking engineer who made some really good posts online a while ago, the MTU, which is basically the maximum transmission size of the data packets that are being sent, is set to be really fucking small on the PSN servers and not much better on the Xbox servers. So basically, you can have a 100 megabyte connection, but it's the reason it takes so long to download an application or a game update compared to, let's say, if you were to do that on Steam. Like, yes, Steam has its busy periods, we both know that. But there are a lot of times where you can max out your connection, get like 10, 15, whatever megabytes a second.
The Steam download speed, while sometimes, say during the Steam sale or something, the download times can be obviously hampered by the amount of people on the server. Most of the time, it is basically down to how good is your internet. If it's good, then you're gonna, if you can get 10 megs a second, you're probably gonna get 10 megs a second. Like, I would say 8 times out of 10, I'd say is a fair representation. So, I don't know. I mean, there are still advantages to console gaming. It is, of course, still less hassle than PC gaming, but its advantages are disappearing as they're becoming more and more PC-like with the constant updates and all this other stuff. And obviously, when you lump onto that, worse graphics, worse frame rate a lot of the time, and obviously worse loading times as well. Like, even with an SSD, it's still going to be slower. So yeah, it's just, I can see why people game on a console. I'm not going to call anyone out for gaming on a console. You game on whatever you want to game on, it's your business. But I'm just saying that the argument that consoles are easier is kind of becoming harder and harder to argue, at least in my opinion.
Precisely. And once again, this is not me saying that consoles are bad. No,
of course not. They have their advantages. As you say, there's some really good games on consoles, like Bloodborne, for example, Uncharted, Infamous. All of that stuff. So,
I mean, even Halo, I've really enjoyed Halo this generation.
Yeah.
But with all of that said, I just think that it could do so much better.
No, I agree. I mean, there's probably not that much that can be done about the patches and stuff. It's just how the industry is at the moment, that the game will go gold like 3 months before launch, and obviously while the developers are waiting for all the red tape to sort itself out, they're working on a patch, and obviously that patch will get put on day one. But it is a pain. Like, imagine, for example, that you're someone with a data cap and you can only download a certain amount per day. You probably easily max out your data cap in 5 minutes by downloading a patch for a game these days.
Yeah, and it's consistent as well.
Yeah.
So, I think
not just on console. I mean, there are huge updates from PC as well, but
there are. But that's the thing. Like, once again, it's the mentality of the PC. It's like
that's something we've been used to for years now. Whereas it's
precisely
huge updates is fairly new to the console.
And also, game stability recently on console is supposedly going down. I mean, there are some people who are reporting bloody crashes.
Yeah.
I mean, the PS4, it's just like, I don't know.
It is odd. Like, I mean, not to
Even
say,
I've had some crashes to desktop. Like, I was playing Bloodborne the other day and I got so fucking angry. I got past this area, just got to a boss, and the game crashed.
Oh no.
And I was like, what the actual fuck? And it set me back to an enemy, and the game loaded in, and I was getting killed by the enemy, and it was still loading, so I was like, what the actual shit? So I managed to kill the enemy, used up a health potion, and I was like, what the hell?
That's an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, there were still issues and bugs and problems with PS2 games, and obviously their advantage now is that's probably going to get patched out, whereas that wasn't really the case back in the day. So there are some advantages to this, but,
Yeah, it's just, they're just fewer than what they were.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. The difference between PC and console in terms of advantages versus disadvantages is basically a case of convenience. Is what it's boiled down to now. Is like if you don't really know much about graphics cards and all that, it is way easier just to walk into a shop and pick up a PS4 or Xbox One, and you're good. You don't need to worry. All the games that come out on that system are going to run in theory. In theory.
And then the PS4 Pro came out.
Most of the time. And then, whereas with the PC, you've got to worry about, okay, what CPU do I have, what's graphics card, how much RAM do I want, all this other stuff. So I can definitely see why people are put off by PC gaming. I definitely understand that, but I don't know. There's not really much else to argue other than it's convenient.
Yeah, it's like a cat.
It's like a cat.
It's like, yeah, it's like, you know, the console's like, I'm trying to be as inconvenient as possible.
Alright, well, unless there's anything else you want to bring up, I feel like we should probably call it there, as we're about 45 minutes in.
Might as well make it one more if you've got any others.
No, that's pretty much it.
So, I've got to ask, how much damage have you done this holiday? What have you bought?
In the Steam sale, you mean?
Well, just the sales in general.
Well, to be honest, I've mostly been taking advantage of the sales to get a few presents bought, to be honest. So I haven't actually bought anything for myself in the sales, to be honest. It's all just presents for people.
Really?
I'm not one of those people who gets all their shopping done like 3 weeks before Christmas, but I figure the sales are on, I might as well get a few in now just to save some cash and then get the rest a bit later.
Fair enough.
In terms of the Steam sale, I haven't got much. I got Alien Isolation finally. I mean, I have played it before, but that was on a friend's machine and other stuff like that.
So, did you enjoy it?
Yeah, you know, I mean, it was literally like a gaming weekend that we had, and we played it together for a good long while, but I haven't actually completed it. So I thought, you know what, finally I'm going to buy that because it was pretty cheap. And I bought Resident Evil HD Remaster, and I've also got a game that was like £2 called 12 is Better Than 6, and apparently it's very like Hotline Miami, but a Western theme, and I'm like, that sounds good to me, sign me up.
Give that cara.
What about you? Have you bought much?
0.
No? Nothing?
Zip. 0. Oh, wait, I lie. I bought Resident Evil 5.
Oh yes, the Gold Collection.
Yeah, I technically owned it on PC, but it was the disc version.
Right.
And I was like, fuck it, it's the original. It's like £4 or £5 or whatever the hell it is. I'm just going to cough up and buy the damn thing. So I've bought it because I want to play Untold Stories because I've never played them. And supposedly they're really good. I was a bit pissed, however, when I found out that you have to actually play up to chapter 3.1. But it's been so long since I've played Resident Evil 5, I guess.
To be fair, like, it probably wouldn't take you that long to blast through to 3.1.
True.
Like, a few hours, probably. I can't remember how long that game is, to be honest.
Evil 5 PC. I wonder if there's a cheat.
Probably. Anyway, I think we should probably wrap it up there again, unless you want to say something else.
Boobs are great.
I mean, yeah, but it's not really topic relevant.
I don't know. Boobs can be a great topic.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for listening, guys. We'll see you next week.
Boobers.
Bye.
Pretty much.